Hi. So today's video is going to be on how to ground and what I do when I ground into the earth. And this is something that I do every time I'm waking up, and I'm like in the morning I get up and I kind of start like my meditative like check-in energetically with me. And it's like, how am I doing? What was my dream? If I can remember it, and I write and kind of sit in. But before I even do all that, it's kind of part of my protection sequence, in that I root into the earth. And it's kind of a funny concept. When I started practicing this, I didn't do a lot of research. I was just like, I just need to do something different. I don't give a shit anymore about it sounding stupid and crazy. I'm doing it. And then I started doing it and practiced it for years now. And I can tell you, after 4 or 5 years now, there's been a huge difference in my anxiety, in my level of calmness, and I think receptivity for divine guidance by having this practice. Now, I also always do the spiritual protection stuff every day too. So to combo that with this is huge. So what I learned from other podcasts, from other books, Ted Andrews is a great author. Other podcasts would be like Psychic Teachers or Enlightened Empaths. And that's enlightened, ENLIGHTENED. Empaths is EMPATHS. For those who need to have a spelling to remember anything, that's me. So anyway, those teachers really helped me learn about grounding and how important it is. And for me, I think of the human experience, and I probably mentioned this on another video, of 5 dimensions. There's my hand, sorry. Forget where the recording's at. You've got physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, which is our soul. And then in my opinion, something that I call roots. And all it is this connection to the earth. It's like we are here for a reason. We have a particularly unique connection, I'm trying to think of the right word, symbiotic relationship, like it's like giving to each other. Like, so when we go into the forest, like we can get this calm and healing. At the same time, I think that we can give our extra energy, which may feel frantic or anxious, but the earth can use it for, theoretically, volcanoes, opening seeds inside the earth, that kind of stuff, that kind of energy. Yes, I understand how this sounds to any normal person. I laugh at it, but I'm telling you, I just had to be like, open to spirit, open to weird shit, think about energy, and kind of think about how I can interact with it, and just get rid of my judgment and hesitations on how crazy anything sounds. Because really, I was already in Christian dogma that I kind of grew up with. I mean, we were doing communion, eating the body of Christ. So I was kind of like, what's being open about energy really going to do that's stepping outside of that, and like, come on, like, I don't know, man, I just dropped that ego shit and in my pride, and just thought, what, let me just be open to it. I wanted to do something different. And I'm glad I did. So connecting to the earth is kind of related a little bit to the chakras. So in the chakra system, you've got a whole bunch of different chakras. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm going to talk about the root one, which is literally from the connection from my body, like all my layers all together, into the earth, right? And it's basically, if you Google like root chakra or a diagram of the 7 main chakras, you're going to see this red little dot at the bottom of usually someone who's sitting Indian style. And it's like basically at their tailbone, their ass, whatever. And it goes, basically the idea is from that red root chakra, you envision something. For me, it's like a red laser beam. At times, I think I even had it as like a anchor chain, because it was like I needed to feel kind of the sensation of going into the earth, and I needed to think of something visual that would like bring me into it. So I would practice over time various visuals of an anchor, something that could like really, force that kind of feeling into the earth. Because if I did just like a laser beam, I didn't feel, I don't know what the word would be, but just like I didn't feel like really assimilated into the earth yet with my energy. And then I was at some sort of like metaphysical fair, and this lovely woman, and I can't remember her name or I'd give her credit, she said to hum as I imagined whatever it was. If it was an anchor, a chain, a laser beam, a whatever you want to, can't even think of another example, but to hum while you're doing that. And that humming kind of helps that feeling of going deep down into the earth, and I'm closing my eyes and like imagining this red beam coming from my root chakra, my tailbone, down into the earth, going miles and miles. And as if I was like, in a movie watching this laser beam going into the earth, seeing the earth just kind of like the layers of earth, this laser beam just keeps going. And then eventually gets into the core. And then I want the absolute center of the earth. So in my mind, which obviously isn't scientific, I think of this beautiful bright white star in the middle of the earth's core. The center of all the heat and everything. And then this little star, I see my little red laser beam going down there and then circling that star 2 or 3 times, depending on how like rooted and kind of frantic I feel in that moment. And then like zipping back up and then having that laser beam return to my root chakra. Yeah, this sounds weird. The reason for this connection on both parts is to really kind of focus on connecting, especially if you've never really done this before. And then also to have this idea of the bad, unhelpful energy for me, which may be brought to the earth and used for volcanoes, wind, opening up seeds. I mean, it takes a lot of pressure to open up a seed sometimes under the ground. So I'm imagining all these things that the earth can use my shitty energy for, my super anxious energy. And then that, it gets healed almost as if in my mind, and I overanalyze a lot of things. So to me, some people just have imagery and it's enough. I usually have to think about it and be like, what does that represent when it circles that star? And to me, this was like this transformation point of this energy from mine into the earth, where I release it, where it's just finally gone. Like it took all that mileage for me to release that shit. It probably did. And it can happen like that, that connection, that zzz, And so as I'm imagining that, I'm doing this little hum that woman suggested to me, this lovely woman who I wish I knew her name, I'd give her credit. And I do a hum. And so it's a kind of guttural hum, but that for some reason, and work with it yourself, find a pitch that feels like it's like, oh, it's like your root and going in. Some people might think a root of a tree. I've also played with, besides the laser beam and even, circling around the star of the center of the earth, I also thought about roots of a tree. Like I'm a tree and I go into the earth and I'm like millions of these roots that go sideways and down and around the star and I don't think I do a back, but I just kind of know that the same energy can go back. But the idea is that when that energy comes back, it's been transformed, transmuted into this healing energy from the earth. It's like Mother Earth giving me a blessing, right? Like, thank you for interacting with me, Susie, today. Here's some peace. Here's some calmness. Here's some zen, whatever. And sometimes too, when I know I'm like really pissed off, I feel bad about giving that to the earth, even though I really think it's all kind of part of this, like, dust to dust. We're going to return to this space. We're here for a reason. It's okay. And I think the earth can take whatever we, energetically. When we do it in terms of like, I need to give this to you so I can be healed. I sometimes feel bad about that, and I'll envision angels. So if you feel bad at times about your energy and you're like, how can they take my hate like this? I don't want to give it to Mother Earth, and that's okay. Then sometimes I also think of angels by me. You might want to see it as just like mist coming off you and the bad, any of the super bad stuff that, the earth can take it to the sun, or the God can take it, universe can take it to the sun, whatever imagery makes you feel good. But the whole point of it is to flush out the anxiety, the excess anger. You know what I'm talking about. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging anger. It's just a matter of excess. It's resentment. It's like the bitterness stuff that we need to kind of, get rid of. And feeling a connection with Mama Earth and allowing that healing to come back. this might feel better. Sometimes I've found like a park where I can kind of sit near a tree or on a tree, literally, just to feel like I'm using your roots to help me ground. And then from that spot, I can kind of feel like sometimes I've rooted better. And then I will also imagine at times when I've had trouble rooting, like as if, you know, here I am in the Pacific Northwest and I imagine like a globe and I'm like pulled out into space and here's my consciousness looking at Susie standing here in where I live and seeing like as if I could have the earth and see like, oh, there's that line, wow, and how huge it is, and like just to get perspective and really root in this imagery of me rooting into the center and seeing it circled a few times and then going back up and seeing that little red beam thing as if I were looking at it from space and as if I could, you know, half the earth and like see what's happening inside for my rooting exercise. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time on this. So there are people that can do this quicker, that are naturally just attuned to it. For me, it was just hard to turn my mind down and kind of relax. And I had a lot of pent-up energy. And that rooting has been part of the process of making anxiety my bitch. And I'm really glad that I can manage a lot of surprises now with that. Now, it doesn't mean I don't still get surprised and like WTF you'll see on my face. But I try to, in that moment of talking to an irate person, being able to root so I don't have to like heighten the exchange and try to just calm my energy. It's good. It's really hard to do that when you're like super triggered by people, but the more you practice it, the more you can call it in. And if not, afterward, it's great. Especially for my kids, when they call or they talk to me later and come home and they're talking about mean shit that kids do. A lot of times I'll have them ground and do the exercise with me and kind of say that is this your truth? And they'll be like, no. And then, okay, let's bring this bullshit somewhere else. It's, you know, theoretically, like I've talked about, you can either bounce that energy to the center or you can like have an image, and that's in the previous video about protection, about having a bubble. And then, you know, that's one thing for energy to kind of bounce off you, but if you've kind of absorbed it, this is a way of releasing that part that you absorbed, right? Before you've really get to used to having a protection, like, bubble around you. Sometimes you just absorb shit, and this is a good way of just flushing it. You know, it's like the universal commode kind of thing, except we love the earth. It sounds horrible. Like I'm like, we're not misusing the earth. The earth is there. It feels like an energetic friend. And the more often that we tap into it, I think the more often we bless it. So that is my opinion. Feel free to tweak as you feel you're led. Okay, one quick thing I wanted to interrupt my flow there and add this. That rooting really helps, especially before you do any sort of meditative, receptive energy kind of practice. So, you know, any pondering of the navel or divinatory practice like tarot cards, mediumship, automatic writing, any of that. Even with the pendulum, like any of that. Rooting as well as that protection video that I have on my channel. These go hand in hand. Your energy without rooting into the earth can get spun out. So if us humans are right here, our vibration's like right here. Yes, even the most, you know, chill AF human, we're right here. And then we've got the spirit realm, divine, you know, existence up here. When we want to communicate and receive information with that realm, you know, by meditating, strangely enough, by chilling ourselves out, by really calming ourselves, our body and our minds, you'd think we'd be like, but you don't. We actually in vibration go really upward. And you don't even feel it sometimes. You just feel calmness. You just totally get zenned out. So then, you know, we go up in our vibration. And at the same time, I think the spirit level accommodates so they can talk to us, slow people, so that we can receive from them. So they kind of accommodate. But the whole point is when you root, it helps the the vibration. I don't know why. I mean, for me, how I feel it just intuitively is that for some reason, this is how it makes sense to me. I'll just say it. I think of it as like a note that gets strung, like on a guitar, like, and it can become in pattern with the spirit at the same time, right? When we root. If we don't, we're like this. It's just really hard to hear things clearly when you're trying to communicate with spirit or the divine on that level. That's the visual that makes sense to me. Yeah. And so I do it anytime I'm going to be doing any of that stuff, meditative stuff, receptive energy stuff. So just wanted to plug that in real quick. Okay, well, I hope all this helped you guys. Like I said, any sort of visual, come up with your own, be creative. It's just as valid as anyone else's, including mine. So feel free to tweak and explore with it, practice it, strengthen it, do it several times a day. And if any of you are just kind of naturally a little, I'm going to say flighty, but I really don't mean to be dismissive at all toward that energy. I think you're beautiful souls. This is another part of helping you root so that you kind of can calm that down and just use that openness kind of more at your will, for depending on when you need it during the day, rather than it just surprise you and it's happening, right? Yeah, so use that, and yeah, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for listening. Take care, guys.